She was a human being, a person, a friend, a nice lady.
Our goal is simply to find out what happened to these 4 souls.
Today, investigators finally confirming what Muskoka residents have believed for decades, that 4 missing seniors were murdered. Now, 20 years later, police are appealing to those same residents to help them crack the case. All 4 vanished from cottage country during a 1-year period in the late 90s. All 4 were marginalized, vulnerable seniors renting from the same family. They were officially listed as missing, but tonight police are admitting publicly for the first time they believe the 4 were murdered. Lorenda Redekop has more on the new information released by investigators.
4 seniors not seen for 20 years, all with mental health or addictions issues, now considered homicide victims.
At the time of the disappearances, all 4 had one thing in common: where they lived.
3 men who disappeared had all been living at a senior's home, Fern Glen Manor, in a remote area in Huntsville. It was owned by 4 siblings, members of the Land family. Another victim, Joan Lawrence, lived on a farm owned by them. She paid $600 a month to rent a garden shed with her dozens of cats.
We know now that Joan was moved 600 meters away to a nearby abandoned van where she lived among other derelict vehicles for another 2 months before she met her end on that property.
No remains have been found. Detective Inspector Rob Matthews interviewed her at that shed all those years ago. She had a fraud complaint.
Joan was inside, standing in her bare feet. She wore several layers of clothing. There were too many cats to count.
But 2 days later, he couldn't find her. Police documents obtained by the Fifth Estate showed that at least one detective at the time believed she was killed to keep her from reporting frauds, thefts, and mistreatment from her landlords.
The former owners of these properties have never cooperated with police.
But police won't name the Lands as suspects, but do say this.
It would be disingenuous to say that the Lands are not of interest to us.
The OPP say 12 other people died at the Lands retirement homes. All had checks in their names cashed long after their deaths. As police released these new details, family members of one of the victims were here in the room, also learning more after all these years. They did not wish to speak to the media. Police hope to give them more answers.
When major cases first happen, everybody is normally quite tight-lipped, but sometimes time is our best friend.
A friend of Joan Lawrence's wants justice.
I was hoping that they would say that, maybe someone came and confessed, or they had somebody in custody. Let's put these seniors to rest and get this case solved.
Lorenda Redekop, CBC News, Vaughan.
The OPP is committed to investigating this until we know the answer.
We have more on the story coming up. I talk one-on-one with the lead investigator on the case to ask him about the difficulty of solving 4 murders without a single body, and why, after not discussing the case for over a decade, the OPP decided to go public today. The RCMP are continuing a widespread manhunt for 2 suspects connected to 3 deaths in British Columbia. Cam McLeod and Briar Schmigelski remain at large. Police believe they have traveled thousands of kilometers from the initial crime scenes to northern Manitoba and are hiding out in the wilderness. Renee Filipponi has the details.
Drones, dogs, boots on the ground. The police presence is obvious around the northern Manitoba community of Gillam. For residents, it's a tense time.
You gotta be really on edge. No idea where these guys are, so never really been nervous like that.
The car the teens were driving was found here on Fire Monday. Bill Beardley reported it to police. At the time, he had no idea it was connected to the manhunt.
I was surprised because we sat here for like 45 minutes before anyone even got here. They could have been sitting in the bush watching us.
And no one knows where 19-year-old Cam McLeod and 18-year-old Briar Schmigelski went from there. But so far, they've managed to evade police for days.
At this point in the investigation, we believe they are still in the area.
People familiar with the terrain say if the teens are on foot, they will be struggling.
It's all swamp. Yeah, there's transmission lines, old rail bed, stuff like that. That's not too bad, but you get off the beaten trail and it's all swamp. You're up to your waist in water, moss.
The pair are suspects in the murders of American China Deese and her boyfriend, Australian Lucas Fowler, and they have now been charged with second-degree murder in the death of Leonard Dick. Police identified the 64-year-old UBC lecturer yesterday. In a statement, his family said, "We are truly heartbroken by the sudden and tragic loss of Len. He was a loving husband and father. His death has created unthinkable grief, and we are struggling to understand what has happened."
He was a fun-loving guy, but private in his own way.
This friend of Dick said the man often traveled alone and loved visiting northern BC.
He loved the marine environment, and so he focused all his attention on that. But he also was really focused on his family.
The grief is real for the families and friends of the 3 people killed, and so is the urgency to find these teens, who are potentially armed and dangerous. Renee Filipponi, CBC News, Vancouver.
There's outrage tonight after Egypt's immigration minister made comments at an event in Mississauga that some are calling a disturbing threat. I'm Angelina King. We'll show you that video and bring you reaction. That's coming up.
Local honey producers are feeling a little sour these days. Honey has become one of the world's most faked foods. It's being diluted with cheap syrups, but still being labeled as pure honey. The food fraud has been undercutting prices for years, and local beekeepers say they are feeling the sting. Alicia Son explains.
Oh, wow, look at that. I can just taste it like this. Oh my God. There's no faking that.
The only varying ingredient in pure honey should be the type of flower nectar the bee chooses.
And they just suck out the sweet stuff, and that's what we extract as honey.
The real stuff, not the fake honey recently busted by the Canadian Food Inspection Agency. These are the people whose job it is to make sure Canadians aren't being deceived in the grocery aisle.
So the database has thousands of measures of authentic honey, and then what we do is we compare the sample to that profile for authentic, and that can tell us whether there's added sugars. Canadian corn versus honey, right? It's a small little difference we're looking at.
Since June 2018, the CFIA has been cracking down on imported honey that's being diluted with cheap sugar. The agency collected 240 samples across Canada from honey importers, distributors, processing facilities, and retailers.
22% were found to have some foreign sugars in the honey. So this could be in the form of sugar syrup, such as corn syrup or rice syrup.
More than a fifth of imported honey from places like Greece, India, Pakistan, Vietnam, and China failed tests at the CFIA lab in Ottawa. Local producers have been feeling the sting of the food fraud for a long time.
So we're trying to support the family, and selling honey wholesale in the barrel on the world market was really difficult. And so we just said, this is not sustainable.
Unlike his grandfather, third-generation beekeeper Chris Heemstra can't survive on honey alone.
Someone can take sugar for 20 cents a pound and say it's honey against someone that needs $2 a pound to make a living.
Heemstra says buying local is the only way these days to be sure you get what you pay for.
Try to find somebody that's got their name on a bottle, the beekeeper, look at them, see if they got dirt on their hands and they've got swollen cheeks or something, bee stings.
Ali Chiasson, CBC News, Aylmer, Ontario.
Nick, you have a friend in the east end of the city talking to a friend in the west end of the city. One's complaining about rain. The other one is like, what are you talking about? It's not raining.
I know, exactly. And that's what I was saying yesterday, is that it's really going to be this localized sort of rainfall that we have in the GTA. That story, by the way, is going to carry through over the next couple of days. So just be warned. And it's all being fueled by these temperatures, and specifically as well the humidity. This is the fuel, and then all we need is a little bit of a trigger to fire off some of these storms. Right now, temperature is sitting at about 28 degrees in Markham, but you notice 24 in Mississauga and downtown Toronto. Why? Because of the rain. It was 28 degrees earlier, and things have cooled down. With the Humidex, feels like 32 in Markham, where really didn't rain. So here's a look at what we're seeing right now on the radar image. Now, this was the cell here that kind of passed through the downtown core. Heavier rainfall that had come down through Brampton and Mississauga, just starting to dissipate right now. A few spotty showers, but you notice not much to speak of. Most of it is out to the east end. Other than that, things are kind of clearing up for us as we move into the overnight period tonight. Forecast-wise into tomorrow, we're looking at clear skies to start the day. Again, though, through the afternoon, with a little bit of instability, we're going to trigger off some spotty showers across the region. They'll dissipate, and then into Friday, same story. We've got a few spotty showers. Tonight, 17 degrees. Tomorrow, 29 degrees with a humidex. Feels like 34. Again, the risk of a few showers. It gets warmer, but in particular, it gets more humid. We'll have your full forecast coming up in just a bit.
Thank you, Nick. Toronto police are asking for your help finding Gucci. No, not the high-end store, but a little puppy taken from outside of a store. Police released this image of Gucci, a 4-month-old husky pup. The dog was tied up to a post on Carlton Street while its owner was shopping inside. That's when police say this man and a woman approached the pup, untied its leash, and walked away with Gucci. Police are asking anyone who recognizes these two to contact them. Former Ontario Health Minister David Kaplan has died. Kaplan was first elected in 1997 and served as the Liberal Health Minister from 2007 to 2009. He served as an MPP until 2011. Kaplan is being remembered as a hard-working politician who was dedicated to his community. He was the Minister of Health during the e-health scandal when millions of dollars went to consultants with government ties. There's no official word on what caused his death. David Kaplan was just 54 years old. Disturbing and completely inappropriate. That's what some members of Ontario's Egyptian community are calling comments made by Egypt's immigration minister. While visiting the GTA last weekend, Minister Nabila Makam suggested people who criticize Egypt should be punished. Her comments all caught on video. Angelina King is following the story for us and joins us now. Angelina, what exactly is said in the video?
Well, essentially, Nabila Makram says that anyone who speaks out against her country should have their throats cut. She was speaking to members of the Egyptian community in Mississauga. You can see it in this video. At first, she was sharing a message of unity among Egyptians. Then she says they can't bear any negativity from the international community. It's clear in the video she makes a slashing motion across her throat. You can also hear the crowd laugh and applaud. So some people online are saying that this is an Egyptian metaphor meant as a joke. But the man who posted the video disagrees. Mohammed Nas, an Egyptian-born journalist, was sent the video from someone at the event. He says the comments shocked him, but also says that they reflect the current political climate in Egypt. He spoke with us through a translator.
الجو السياسي في مصر ربما انعكس تماما.
There is no space for dissidents or for a different opinion that is not what the military or what the current government is and represents.
Yes.
The Egyptian-Canadian Coalition for Democracy posted Nas's video online. One board member I spoke with says he immediately thought of Jamal Khashoggi, the dissident Saudi journalist who was killed in the consulate in Istanbul. He says that these comments should not be taken lightly.
It might be a veiled threat put as a joke. It might be a reflection of the mindset of the government that came out as a joke, but it doesn't come out of nowhere.
He also says that the political climate in Egypt is the worst it's ever been. Egypt's President Abdel Fattah el-Sisi has been accused of human rights violations and repressing dissidents since he took power 6 years ago. In a voice message to an Egyptian broadcaster, Macron downplayed her comments and said Egypt just doesn't threaten people. Both men I spoke with today want the Canadian government to take a stand. We reached out to Global Affairs for comment. They have yet to respond. The Egyptian consulate in Canada, which arranged Macron's visit, isn't commenting on this, but Peel police say that they are aware of the video and they're looking into it.
Thank you for that, Angelina.
Yeah, it's crazy. It almost looked like one of those things from outer space, though.
How old do you think it is?
I said at least 1,000 years old.
Just how old is this rock that turned up on Bloor Street yesterday? Jurassic? Triassic? No, more like Mesoproterozoic. We'll give you the answer and explain how it got there after the break. Plus,
Jazz Festival has just started. I'm Natalie Nanowski. I'll have more on what you can check out at the 31st Annual Beaches Jazz Festival. That's coming up.
The weather update is brought to you by Train Extreme Conditions Testing. It's hard to stop a train, really hard. Train, the most reliable heating and cooling brand.
rocks don't usually warrant news stories, but this is no ordinary rock. First of all, it's really big, it's really heavy, and it's likely more than 1 billion years old. Greg Ross is rock site tonight near Bloor and Spadina. And Greg, you really could say, and I can't resist, but I have to say, this rock has become somewhat of a rock star.
Well, Dwight, it's been rocking Twitter all day. I mean, just as we've been standing here in the last little while, people have been stopping with their cameras to take pictures, posing for selfies with this rock. This is the most famous rock in Toronto right now, and it actually came out of the ground right over here. It was actually last week that they dug it out of the ground, but last night, the local BIA sent out a picture on Twitter. They mentioned how old it is. They mentioned how heavy it is, and I guess that's what's piqued people's interest. It had people stopping to check it out all day. Kevin Parker didn't know what to make of it.
It looks kind of
This
like
is a meteor?
Yeah, it looks shiny-ish.
Well, it didn't come from space. In fact, construction crews pulled this granite boulder out of the ground last week, a 2,000-kilogram chunk of the Canadian Shield, and it's surprisingly old.
100 years or something.
Keep going.
Really? Yeah. 200?
Keep going.
500?
Keep going.
I have no idea.
How old do you think it is?
I said at least 1,000 years old.
Okay. It's higher. Keep going.
2000 BC.
Keep going.
A couple 100 million? I don't know.
It's actually about 1.1 billion years old, give or take a few 100 million years. And believe it or not, rocks like this are actually pretty common in Toronto, according to U of T professor of geography and earth sciences, Joe Deloge.
Having a shield rock in the Greater Toronto area is not unusual. If you walk many of the creeks and ravines that cut through the glacial deposits, you'll see plenty of granites and various kinds of shield rock embedded.
Deloge says rocks like this traveled here in glaciers, but how this rock wound up on Bloor Street West is still a bit of a mystery.
In a flat area like Bloor Street, where this boulder was uncovered, most of the sediments there, native sediments there, are former lake bottom deposits from glacial Lake Iroquois, which occupied that environment about 14 to 11,000 years ago.
Deloge says it was likely frozen in an iceberg, and when it melted, the boulder settled on the bottom of the lake. A perfect story for locals like Brian Burchell, who is also the chair of the Bloor Annex BIA.
It gives us a link to the past, and to incorporate that into our future plans to make a cottage-like environment in our parkettes is very apropos.
So this boulder has called this area home for more than 11,000 years. It is going to be moving, but not too far from home. In fact, they're building a parkette just west of here on Bloor Street, and that's where they're going to be moving this boulder. In fact, it's going to be joined by some friends. They're bringing a few more granite boulders from the Canadian Shield, but only the Canadian Shield in Quebec. They're going to be shipping those rocks out here to be part of these parkettes as well. So it's part of what they're doing to try and clean up this area, and this rock is going to be staying here at home.
Very cool. Thank you for that, Greg. It is one of the highlights on Toronto's summer calendar. The Beaches International Jazz Festival is about to get underway. Natalie Nanowski is live on Queen Street for us tonight. And Natalie, they've just closed off the street there where you are getting ready.
You know what, they did, and the bands are setting up. These are the Dirty B-sides that are going to be right here. They're just one of over 150 bands that are performing this weekend. It is the 31st annual Beaches Jazz Festival. I was pretty shocked when I realized it's 31 years old, and I'm here with the organizer, the man behind it, the brains, Lido Chinelli. 31 years. How did you come up with this idea?
Well, we started in 1989 with an idea of let's have some music in the park, and it just went crazy from there. Each year it got bigger and better, and it started attracting people. People started bringing their kids. The kids started bringing their families, and now we got people from all over the world coming to vacation here in Toronto.
Mm-hmm. So what can we expect this year? What are some of the big highlights?
Well, the big highlights are the Street Fest and our main stage at Woodbine Park, where we're featuring the legends of Motown, and we've got bands from Switzerland, from Turkey, and when you travel on Queen Street, it's like vacationing on a cruise of music. There's bands at every corner. There's over 45 bands performing each night. Nowhere in North America can you find that. You can dance, you can meet new friends, and have the best time of your life here.
And you were telling me you're expecting 1 million people.
Yeah, throughout the month of July, we're going to be attracting 1 million people. It'll be record-breaking here for the Beaches Jazz Festival, and Canada's largest free jazz festival. We're very, very proud of it in a beautiful community in the beautiful beaches.
Perfect. Yes, and you should be proud of it. Thank you so much, Lido. Dwight, as you heard it, over 1 million people are coming. I'm going to be here enjoying some music. You should come too.
I think I was there 31 years ago partying with Lido. Thank you for that, Natalie.
Thanks.
It's being called the Airbnb of fashion. A Toronto entrepreneur is helping women lend out their clothes and make money doing it. Rehart is a clothing rental company designed to share fashion styles while also helping fashionistas reduce waste.
1, 2 et 3.
That was not graceful. Did you need a one-liner, Rehart?
Give me a one-liner.
Rehart is an online wardrobe sharing platform built for millennial women to lend and rent each other's closets, saving and making money one closet at a time. I had a closet full of clothes and felt as if I had absolutely nothing to wear. And yet I constantly found myself wanting to shop for more and more because I felt that fashion was a huge way that I expressed myself. When I looked into my closet, I realized that it had such great pieces that were hardly worn. They had another extended life to them. So I tried reselling apps where I was getting pennies on the dollar. So instead I thought of what was the perfect medium in between was the fact that I was lending my clothes to friends and family already. And instead I wanted to make a more formalized process for that so that I can make real cash from it and expand it beyond just my circle of friends. There is a harsh reality behind fashion, that it is the fastest growing polluter in the world. I've stopped being a fast fashion consumer for the past 3 years, and I've never felt any better because I know that my dollars are now being put into better quality pieces, but also that I'm not supporting these fast fashion chains that are continuing to pollute our waters. They're continuing to destroy crops, but also on a human perspective that my dollars aren't supporting such human exploitation as well. Instead of investing in fast fashion pieces that are copies of designers, you can get the real thing on Rehard and know that your dollar's not supporting that type of devastation. So with Rehard, we like to say that you don't need 50 dresses anymore, you just need one dress and 50 friends on Rehard.
Our goal is simply to find out what happened to these 4 souls.
After the break, more on our top story, an appeal for help in the murders of 4 seniors who mysteriously disappeared more than 20 years ago. I speak with the lead investigator on the case next.
At the time of the disappearances, all four had one thing in common: where they lived.
Joan Lawrence, Ralph Grant, John Semple, and John Crofts, four vulnerable seniors missing in the Muskoka area for decades, now considered murder victims. Tonight, investigators are appealing to the public to help them figure out who killed them. I spoke to the man in charge of the case earlier today. Journalists have been talking to the OPP over the years, trying to get them to speak publicly about this case. This is the first time this has happened. Why today? Why now?
When we're initially investigating a major occurrence, we go out there and we talk to as many people as possible. This was a homicide investigation. Some people are scared to come forward. They don't want to get involved. But over time, I have found through my experience that people are less concerned about the fallout, and when they hear certain pieces of evidence and see the type of existence these individuals lived in, sometimes they're more comfortable to come forward.
What do you think revealing some of the new details today at this press conference? Some of them have been out there in newspaper articles and documentaries and podcasts. What are you hoping revealing some of this new information today will do for the public in general?
When these homes were in operation, I'll say the records were not exactly stellar, so it was very difficult to determine exactly who was staying on the properties. But I'm hopeful that when people out there see some of the photographs, hear the story, hear how Joan lived, they might come forward. I do believe there are people out there that we are unaware of.
You've been in and out of this case over the years, and it must be frustrating for investigators when you know something happened here. Four people just don't disappear like that. You had other charges connected to this case with fraud and stealing money from some of these same victims. How frustrating is it over these years knowing something has happened but just not being able to get a resolution of any kind?
It is frustrating.
Because some people felt that it was the fact that these were marginalized people, why they were preyed on this way.
Yeah. Well, certainly you would have to talk to the owners and operators of the facilities to get that answer. I'm hoping that the Land family will come forward and tell us what they know. As I said, we generally categorize people into three categories: witness, person of interest, and suspect. I would be remiss. Well, I would be remiss in my duties if I confirmed which category they're in.
But we know they owned and operated the homes. We know there was a connection to these people. And are you saying at this point that they're being uncooperative when you do try to speak to them? And
they are. They have never cooperated with the police, ever.
The biggest problem in this case, is it the fact that you don't have bodies here? You know these people, you believe they were murders, but we have not been able to find human remains?
That is an issue, but numerous police agencies in Canada and the U.S. Have had success with prosecuting cases without bodies. It's all about the evidence, and we are gathering evidence.
As a seasoned, high-ranking police officer, are you confident we're going to get a resolution in this case?
Well, I would love to predict the future. I believe we are moving in the right direction through the assistance of folks like you. This will, I believe, generate a significant number of leads for us to follow, so I appreciate it.
Appreciate your time.
Thank you.
Thank you, Detective.
Okay.
Now, this is the first time in over 10 years the OPP has spoken publicly about this case, and it comes just weeks after the release of the latest season of the CBC podcast Uncovered that looked at the disappearances. You can listen to all 6 episodes of The Cat Lady case now on your favorite podcast app or online at cbc.ca/radio. An Amber Alert was called off just an hour after it was sent out overnight. A missing 2-year-old girl was found safe, but yet again, Brantford police say they were flooded with complaints about the Amber Alert. Officers were called crazy, accused of not doing their job and harassing citizens. It seems a lot of the complainers didn't like being woken up. One person called police 11 times. The alert was issued around 3 a.m. after a call from the toddler's mother. Police say a number of people rang her doorbell, and when the mother answered, police say the father kicked in the back door and took the child. Police caught up with the father around 4 a.m. in Hamilton. He surrendered to officers, and the child was turned over to other family members. 4 people were arrested. The father has been charged with abduction. Police services from Toronto, Peel, Halton, York, and Waterloo are all joining together for a one-day commercial vehicle safety blitz. Officers are pulling over trucks and other vehicles and bringing them in for inspection. Linda Ward tells us if they found any that were not fit for the road.
The constable here is doing an inspection on this truck that was pulled off of the road this morning as part of a multi-force inspection blitz here in Peel region. We're in northwestern Mississauga. Inspector Brent Magnus is with me now. Can you just tell us a little bit about what you guys are doing today?
So this is our summer initiative with respect to conducting inspections of commercial vehicles. In the background you can hear the driver or operator of this truck being checked for his brakes at this point. So the initiative has started years ago, and it's a yearly inspection in the region of Peel, but it entails all our services within the Greater Toronto area, and it's necessary for drivers within our communities to operate safe vehicles.
My friend, do me a favor, turn the steering wheel for me. Yep, so no movement to the pitman arm.
Is that a good thing or a bad thing?
That's a good thing.
Rock the steering wheel back and forth.
A little more.
Back and forth. Keep
good.
The officer went over this truck literally with a fine-tooth comb, going underneath, opening up the hood, checking the brakes, checking every single bolt underneath this truck, as well as the tires. And we have Constable Brown and Constable Paisley over here. So pass or fail?
Pass.
Awesome. Not a bad day for the driver of this truck who spoke with us earlier this morning.
It's a safety for people, you know, who are driving around, and they should be know like what's happening, you know. A lot of drivers not aware of the things what we're supposed to check every day.
But it's not as good of an outcome for every truck here today. What did you find here?
Well, this truck came in, and even before it rolled in, we can actually tell that there's a problem here because there's splash over of oil over here. This part right here is the hub. It contains oil in it, and as a result, when this is empty with oil, it can create very high temperatures, which can result as a wheel off.
So this is a fail.
This is a fail, yes.
Not such a good day?
Not good day. Now they're gonna tow this truck.
Officers will be pulling trucks in here all day. Last year, they inspected 107 commercial vehicles with a 31% failure rate. Linda Ward, CBC News, Mississauga.
As soon as you say plant-based, people think that means healthy. But potato chips are plant-based.
It's one of the newest fast food trends. Beyond Meat sandwiches are everywhere, but is it healthier than the real deal? We ask scientists to weigh in on the burger battle coming up. Dangerously high temperatures continue to grip much of Europe, breaking all-time records in France, Britain, and the Netherlands, and sparking fires in parched farm fields. Just look at that. The sweltering heat brings with it strong, hot winds and an increased risk of wildfires. In Paris, the mercury touched 40.6 degrees, while in the Netherlands, the temperature peaked above 40 for the first time on record. This is the second heat wave to hit Europe in a month, and climate experts warn this could become the new normal. Down in Washington, D.C. earlier this week, Nick, and man, we stayed inside because it was just too hot to go out down there.
Yeah, everybody feeling it across the eastern seaboard of the U.S., central U.S., and of course, in eastern Canada as well. We've had temperatures, remember last week with the Humidex anyway, it felt like it was in the mid-40s, the actual temperature in the mid-30s. Now, not getting quite that hot. We do have some hotter weather in the forecast for us. It breaks down like this, a few scattered thunderstorms. You might have seen them today. Plenty of sunshine, though, in the forecast. Don't let this discourage you from going outside this weekend. But the Humidex is rising, and again, it's going to feel pretty hot. Now, I'm going to throw a couple numbers out for you and keep them in mind as we get to our 5-day forecast. The average high for this time of year, 27 degrees. The average low, and that's the one I want to point out, 15 degrees or thereabouts. So keep that in mind as we get to the 5-day forecast, because you'll see just how warm it's going to get through the overnight. Now, we mentioned the rain showers. There were some severe thunderstorm warnings out across the Kingston area, but for us in the GTA, a few spotty showers that have popped up. We're still looking at a few isolated cells across the GTA, so we're not done with the rain yet, but this should dissipate within the next 1 to 2 hours or so as the sun begins to set. Now, heading through tonight, clear skies tomorrow morning, sunshine through the afternoon. Again, we're going to trigger off a line of isolated thunderstorms once more, and this because we've got the heat and the humidity, which is sort of the instability for all this, and we'll have a little trigger coming through, and that's the lake breeze that forms off of these lakes. We often see that through the summer. Clears out again tomorrow evening, Saturday morning, sunshine. The chance for a few afternoon showers on Saturday, same story once more, but it's really to the north where we're looking at rainfall for Saturday. For us, that'll sweep down on Sunday. Overnight tonight, 17 degrees and clear skies across the GTA, a couple degrees higher than normal. As we move through tomorrow, highs to 29. I've got 30% chance of thunderstorms in there, again, because not everybody is going to see these thunderstorms popping up. There's a look at the 5-day forecast. Temperatures up to 31, but look at our overnight lows. 22 degrees on Sunday night with the humidity. That 22 is going to feel closer to about 26, 27 through the overnight. Dwight.
Thank you, Nick.
You bet.
Now, today's heat may have you wanting to take a dip in a pool or a lake, and as we head to break, Mike Wise tells us why one man's journey across Lake Ontario this week in 1993 was historic.
Carlos Costa made history this week in 1993, becoming the first male para-swimmer to cross Lake Ontario.
I think this is just terrific. I mean, it's the most special day in my life. I just can't believe it.
Unbelievable, Carlos. Way to go.
The day before he slipped into the water at Niagara-on-the-Lake, a grueling 33 hours and 52 kilometers later, he touched land in Toronto, blue and shaking.
I was just battling it out with the waves, and sooner or later I knew I'd get here.
Costa was born without bones in his lower legs. At only 2, he had to have part of his legs amputated. He walked with prosthetics, but in the water, he relied only on his arms.
Persons with disabilities are just as good as anybody else when it comes to competing or anything that they want to do in society.
Hi, my name is Steve Chaves. I'm the owner of Mullisala World, and we're located in downtown Cambridge. The malasada is a yeast-risen dough regionally from the Azores and the Madeira Islands that I grew up eating and my grandmother made for me. The malasada dough is an enriched dough. It's got a little bit more eggs, butter, and milk than your average North American donut. It's hand-stretched, it gets deep-fried, coated in cinnamon sugar or sugar, depending on the way you like it.
Switching food gears here a little bit. Plant-based food is all the rage, but is it always a healthier choice? Beyond Meat says its meatless burgers are a nutritious alternative to beef, but as Christine Birak tells us, some experts feel those claims are overblown.
They cook, look, and now taste a lot alike.
Like no meat?
That's plant.
What plant? It tastes exactly like meat.
The big question now, is one healthier than the other? We asked a food scientist for his take.
I would say to look at the nutrient composition, and you'll probably see that the level of protein, carbohydrates, and fat are actually very similar between the two products.
Where ground beef and plant-based burgers differ is what goes into them.
In terms of ingredients, are there any additives and fillers in this too?
Nope.
Colors? Or...
So this would just be beef.
One ingredient versus about 20 in a Beyond Meat burger, including various proteins isolated from plants, oil, sugar, and salt. So is it healthy?
Probably not, and especially whenever we consider that this product is an ultra-processed food product.
Ultra-processed foods are often prepackaged, high in salt, sugar, or fat, and they contain several ingredients but few nutrients. Beyond Meat makes broad claims like improving human health. It states the increased cancer and heart disease risk associated with eating processed meat, but offers no evidence backing up their own products.
If you're going to say that there's less risk of disease, then let's see the clinical research.
Emerging evidence shows we're getting more of our calories from these ultra-processed and packaged foods, and those eating higher amounts are at an increased risk of high blood pressure, diabetes, and obesity.
As soon as you say plant-based, people think that means healthy, but potato chips are plant-based, and that doesn't mean that they're the best choice.
Now there's so many different kinds of veggie burgers.
That's right, and there's only one veggie burger in my heart.
Chef David Lee cooks up planta burgers at his vegan restaurant.
A mushroom mix, beans, a little bit of tempeh, oats.
Whole foods and simple ingredients.
I didn't want to put anything that people wouldn't recognize.
And plant-based or meat, there's a lot that goes on top. Another reason why burgers shouldn't come with a side of health claims, but remain a delicious treat. Christine Birak, CBC News, Toronto.
From Beyond Meat to Beyond Heat, we're just under a year away from the 2020 Olympic Games in Tokyo, and there's concern about the temperatures athletes will be subjected to during competition. But the Games must go on, so Canadian hopefuls are training for worst-case scenarios. That story for you next.
crowd recognizing him, some standing behind the dugout as he makes his way off the field.
Jays fans witnessing what could be the final Stroh show at Rogers Center last night. The MLB trade deadline is a week away, and Marcus Stroman is rumored to be on the move. The Blue Jays lost last night's game, but Stroman was great, allowing just 1 run over 7 innings. Stroman is the longest tenured Blue Jays player and their representative at the All-Star game this year. Stepping into a Tokyo summer can feel like entering a sauna, and organizers for the 2020 Olympic Games are worried about the extreme heat and humidity and its effect on the athletes and their performances. Devin Haru tells us how Canadians are preparing.
As if race walking for 50 kilometers wasn't difficult enough, Olympian Evan Dunphy has yet another challenge as he prepares for Tokyo 2020, finding a way to beat the heat.
You know, if I was to build my ideal race, I'm looking at something like 10 to 13 degrees probably.
But Dunphy knows that ideal race weather won't exist in Tokyo. Temperatures are expected to soar to a stifling 40 degrees.
Everyone's going to suffer. All the time's going to be a little bit slower. What the difference is who prepares the best for it. So what we're focusing on right now is making sure that we're the most ready for it.
Dunphy and his medical team have been obsessed with tracking what his body does in sweltering situations. He's been heat training for more than a year, even ingesting a computerized pill that records his core temperature for hours while he's competing, a tool he'll be using again during his event this weekend at the National Championships in Montreal.
Just being able to use that data after to see what it did to my core temperature, and that data we'll use directly towards our strategies for Doha this year and for Tokyo next summer.
Long-distance athletes will be affected the most by soaring temperatures, but for some, like hurdler Sage Watson, the heat is welcomed.
I feel like for sprinters and jumpers, we're not on the track that long, so as long as we're staying hydrated and keeping cool, it's perfectly fine.
One of Canada's fastest sprinters, Aaron Brown, says the hotter, the better.
Heat for sprinters is the best environment for us because we like to have our muscles warm and have them firing because it's a lot of short, explosive movements.
With Tokyo 2020 expected to be the hottest Olympics ever, Team Canada needs to keep their cool. Devin Haru, CBC News, Toronto.
As we head to break, take a look at this. A little boy suffered only a hand injury after a scary ride on a luggage carousel at Atlanta's airport this week. Surveillance video shows the 2-year-old climbing up onto the carousel. He quickly gets swept away unnoticed by his mom. He winds up out of sight in another room. He struggles to get off, but piles of bags keep knocking him over. Eventually, he winds up in the main sorting area where workers spot him and rescue him. He was sent to hospital with a bruised hand, but that's it. His mother says she only put him down for a second. The airport says the carousel was activated when the toddler climbed onto it. Scary situation. Happy ending though. We'll be right back. Stay with us. Oh, wow. Finishing high school with honors is something to be proud of, but what about finishing grade 12 with an almost perfect average? That's what 3 students from across the city managed to do. One student got a perfect grade. We met up with them earlier today.
A lot of hard work, a lot of late nights, and a lot of all-nighters, to be honest.
These incredibly smart and hardworking students are known as our top scholars. They've achieved grades of 99% or higher for grade 12 this past school year. And I say higher because for the first time in more than a decade, we have a student who has achieved a grade of 100%.
I've never pushed for getting 100%. I've just pursued my passions, followed my interests, and got involved in the community, and the marks naturally followed.
I've learned over 30 years in education that we don't actually reach these kinds of achievements alone. So to the family and friends of our scholars, you deserve a round of applause as well.
I was born here. My parents came from Afghanistan. I just like to pursue my passion, and I feel like if I work hard and follow my passions, then their passions and their dreams will come true, because my dreams are their dreams.
I guess my mom also instilled a really hard work ethic in me, so I like studying for some really weird reason, I guess. It was not easy. It was not easy. It was definitely challenging.
I think people need to be more courageous when asking questions and put themselves out there.
There's no secret to our success. It's all just about making sure you put in the work, making sure you did the problem sets, you studied for those tests. As long as you put in the effort, there's no other way around it, kind of.
That's why she's so smart, because she hit the nail right on the head.
Yeah.
What you put in is what you get out. We were happy with our little Ontario scholar back
I
then.
know.
These kids are making us look like...
I was happy, if I got 80% or a B+ or whatever, I'm like, yeah, it's awesome.
And here you are. You're on TV. You're a pilot. You turned out all right, but you don't have to be perfect in school. How about the weather for the Jazz Festival?
It's not perfect, but it's not going to be too bad, guys. We do have a few rain showers right now that we're looking at across the GTA up around the Brampton area. Other than that, it's going to clear out, and then moving into tomorrow, we've got temperatures that are going to be around 29 degrees, again with a few scattered thunderstorms. So the only thing we've got to watch for this weekend here is we're talking about on and off sort of light scattered thunderstorms,
showers.
and that's really about it.
Really
The daytime stuff when it pops up.
All right, if you're out enjoying it, just bring an umbrella. That's our show for tonight. Thank you for joining us. Mike Wise has your next local news at 11. I want to leave you with a look at the Queen Street Beaches Jazz Festival. It's kicking off right now. They're just setting up. 31 years it has been taken over the East End. I might actually go down there and check it out this weekend. Too bad we can't leave you with some sounds of the Jazz Festival, because we said they're sitting up. But it's a great thing to enjoy this weekend. Lots happening. Nick and I will see you back here tomorrow. Are you back with me, buddy?
Colette's here with you tomorrow.
Oh, yeah. The weather was going to be good. Colette always brings the sunshine
she always
for the
comes
weekend.
with the good weather, yeah.
Likewise, as you covered tonight, have a great weekend, everybody. I'll see you back here tomorrow. Nick won't.